Oui. and that would total to 4 hours of your day. So perhaps you could even find time within certain sections that you want to tackle these things. So it could be from 10 to 12 and from 1 to 3 or whatever it is that fits your needs. And I recommend that if you're able to set up your calendar as such, you'll be able to, again, identify where you have opportunity to be flexible and where you need to say no. This definitely depends on your stature and your level at your business and the amount of influence that you have. But if you're able to draw some boundaries, you can actually stick to the schedule instead of getting pulled into things that really do not matter or are not useful to your bottom line. 30% goes to the business wants. So again, these are things that are still important, but maybe aren't super critical to the short term. So this could look like future proofing your business. So any innovation that needs to be happening, strategic planning for the next year or the next quarter, whatever lights you up could also go in this category. So that could be public speaking, that could be coaching and connecting with other people on your team, really doing a little bit of a deeper dive on development for the future and growth, like I said before. This could also mean connecting with others in your peer set or people that you look up to, connecting via a coffee chat. So this is oftentimes something that gets shafted to basically whenever you maybe have time, which is for most people likely never. But if you really want to get somewhere with your career, with your business, this is going to be key. And I believe it needs to make up at least a good chunk of your week if it's something that you're really going for. You can't just put your head down and expect to be seen. You really need to be connecting with other people. And that could look like a virtual Zoom. It could look like an in-person coffee chat. And I'd love to do a full podcast episode about how to approach people in order to do this instead of just the age-old, I'd love to pick your brain. There's more tact around it to actually get people to want to have a coffee chat with you. So we'll talk about that later. But that could also go in this 30% bucket. It could be R&I related. It could be researching new product lines. PR and outreach could go in this bucket as well. Panels, networking, that kind of thing. So you're working more outside of the business or outside of your internal frame that you're working towards within your business. So you're looking at the future, you're looking at other people, you're looking at your competition. This is where things kind of start to zoom out. And that is 2.5 hours or 5 30-minute meetings or 3 45-minute meetings, depending on the way you want to break it out. And then we have the last category within this 50-30-20 model within your 8-hour workday, which is personal investment. So this is the smallest segment, potentially the most important. And I find that in my career, there are many people who just don't even have a 20% at all. They don't consider looking at the business this way or their career. They just are struggling to survive. And I've been there too. But if you can get to a place where you can communicate either with yourself, if you're self-employed, or with your team, that you really need this time in order to invest in yourself and make yourself even more effective, it will be so worth it. So this time looks like learning. So for me, I'm learning French. I am also trying to master my Excel skills, better thinking time. So it could just be about bringing up problems and thinking about how you can go about solving them. Goal setting for this year or the next year or within the quarter. Coaching, and this could most likely look like getting coached. So having someone to talk to work out different problems and find solutions there. This is also where you would want to focus on your deep work. So your deep work could look like writing a book. It could look like posting a podcast. It could be whatever it is within your scope that deep work looks like. So that's the stuff that can really change the game entirely. And if you were able to dedicate 20% of your time to it, you could see transformational changes within yourself and your business. This could also be a training that's maybe an hour-long training. It could be a couple hours. Courses that are ongoing that could be once a week, like a assembly course or even a mastermind where maybe you go in person and connect with other people that you are inspired by. So that is the 50-30-20 model as it relates to your actual workday. I find that if you're able to categorize the meetings that you have within this time frame, then you won't end up spending so much time on all of the unnecessary administrative tasks. And maybe you need to decide, I'm not the one that's going to be doing that anymore. In a perfect world, we would all be able to get to that. But within the 4 hours that you have in your business needs category, find ways that you can build efficiencies there. So if you're doing your expense report, just sit down for 1 hour every month and dedicate that time to the expense report, knock it out. You don't have to worry about it for the rest of the month. If you're reporting, how can you use Power BI, Excel to help automate your reporting tools? Is there someone else on your team that can be doing this? Can you hire a virtual assistant? There are different opportunities that are brought to the table when you start to think about your priorities. I would highly recommend 2 different resources on this particular topic because I think they have very similar mindsets when it comes to time management. And that is number 1, a book that you may have already heard of or read before, which is The 4-Hour Workweek. And don't be fooled by the name, because when I first read the title, I thought that would not be for me. But when I read the book, I made so many connections with Tim Ferriss, who's the author. I was blown away. The way that he thinks of time is really impressive and completely game-changing. Second resource would be, this is a little bit of a curveball, but Rob Dyrdek, yes, of Ridiculousness and MTV. I listened to him on the Skinny Confidential podcast, and honestly, my friend said, "Oh, you should listen to this episode." I'm a religious listener of that podcast, but something about this episode just didn't really appeal to me at first. I wasn't a huge fan of his, or not in a bad way, but I didn't know much about him. But my friend was like, "No, you should definitely listen to this." He is an absolute genius at time management. He should have his PhD in creating automated systems. It's absolutely incredible. So I'll link that podcast episode below as well if you want to check out how he does it. It's quite mind-bending and overwhelming, so it might not be for everybody, but if you are as serious about time management about that I am, I would definitely go ahead and check that out. So now that we've mastered your time in both your professional and your personal life, let's set up different systems in order to be able to regulate that. So on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, whatever it is that works best for you, set up time in your calendar to decipher what's working and what's not. Do a cost-benefit analysis on what's giving you not only money, but also time and energy, what's filling up your tank, and what is depleting you. And that could be people, it could be energy vampires, it could be projects that you just do not want to work on anymore and somebody else can tackle. This is going to be absolutely critical because while systems are very useful, they always need some tweaking. And it also needs that human touch of, this is working really well for me, this could use some optimization. It's always going to need a little bit of rejiggering depending on what you need. And I also mentioned this during my night routine and morning routine episodes, and that is that my night and morning routines will never look the same, honestly, from one day to another. While the steps are generally the same, I'm never going to do them in the exact same way because I am a human and things change and your business will change, your mindset will change. And eventually, once you start to think in this way, you're going to build boundaries with other people and yourself. And you're no longer going to be putting up with things that you once did. So your future self is actually going to be able to handle so much more because you've built these efficiencies. So what I would implore you to do is, yes, set up these tools in your weekly calendar, but also set up checkpoints to take a bit of a digest of what's going on and what's working. The last note that I have here in my notes is to also consider a financial tool within your budgeting of your time, and that is to diversify your portfolio. And this is something that's said in finance all the time, specifically with investments. And that is that you need to be a jack of all trades to a certain extent. So you need to be thinking about your short-term goals, your long-term goals, your short-term investments, your long-term investments. So you need to be thinking about these different areas of your life and your professional goals in order to achieve them. Unfortunately, there's no person out there that can just do one thing and call it a day. Even with more creative rules, there are things like expense reports and hiring people and paying taxes. And there's always going to be things that you don't want to do. But in order to achieve the biggest dreams that you have, be it writing a book, starting a business, building a house, you're going to need to be tackling these different metrics. And when I was in school, I always knew I wanted to be in business, but I didn't know exactly what that would look like. And I had a marketing concentration. And when I ended up taking the finance and accounting courses, which I had to take in order to get my degree, I thought, I don't need these. I'm going to be a marketer. Who needs that? And joke's on me. Every time I meet with a aspiring marketer or students from my school, I always say those are the most important classes that you'll take, because if you can master that, the rest comes easy. Finance and accounting by no means are my passion. Sorry, Alfonso, but I will say I've been able to use it as a tool in order for me to build influence and also be able to execute my projects. If you have a vision and if you have something that you want to get off the ground, in product marketing is, getting an actual product off the ground, I need to be able to influence my stakeholders to say, I have this idea and this is how much money you're going to make from it. And by doing that, I'm able to actually influence people and get their buy-in. So all this to say is that life is interesting and it's got all these different aspects to it. As much as we'd like to just work on what we want to work on, we at least have to find a way in order to accomplish maybe some of those other administrative tasks that aren't as fun, that you don't want to do, that are not your skill set, and achieve them. So doing your taxes, for example. I don't really want to do my taxes, but I have a nice lady named Cheryl that will do them for me, and I pay her a premium to take care of it, and I know it's done effectively. So I'm not going to be somebody who's all up in QuickBooks all the time to figure out how I can manage my accounting needs. She's going to be there to do that. So if you're able to diversify your portfolio in this way, you can take care of all the things that you need to take care of, good, bad, things you want to do, things you don't want to do, and achieve them very seamlessly. Since I've built some efficiencies in my own life, and this has come with time, of course, I find myself having to do less things that really drain me a lot and instead build systems around them to get them taken care of. And I'm also able, with the 20% of my time that's dedicated to things like deep work, thinking, meditation, I'm able to really define what works well for me, what I'm able to do, and me only, and amplify that even more. So very funny that even though I had this 50-30-20 analysis in budgeting, it still comes down to 80-20. There's still that parallel there. So within the 20%, I'm able to achieve 80% of the outcome. And I just find that to be so interesting. The 80-20 rule still to this day is the best personal development tool I've probably ever come across, and is also one of the top listened to episodes of the Seeing Better podcast. So clearly there's an interest out there. I have an 80-20 analysis worksheet too, if you want to dive deeper into what that looks like from a more macro perspective. But my homework from today is to figure out a way that I can capture this visually. So if you want to integrate the 50-30-20 rule to your time, you can go ahead and do that. So that will be something that I'll be working on. And in the meantime, feel free to send me any feedback that you have in the seeingbetterpod@gmail.com email. In the case that this has inspired you in any way, or if you have any podcast topics that you want me to explore. As always, if you found this to be useful, feel free to share with a friend or family member. I would love to grow the community at Seeing Better. And with that being said, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I hope you'll be seeing better. Thank you.